This is Beer in Front. I'm your host, Dave Zalatoris. Podcast where we talk about the beer that's in front of us and the people, places, and stories behind it. Coming up today, what happened to the ashtray? We'll get into that and give you a chance to win one. I also have the brewery of the week is going to be Kishwaukee Brewing Company out in Woodstock, Illinois. Plus, big news out of Chicago in the beer world that I'm going to talk about. So open up whatever you're drinking, settle in, and let's get to it. This is Beer in Front. Every beer has a story. Some changed history. Some disappeared overnight. Some changed the way we drink. If you like learning something every time you watch or listen, welcome to Beer in Front. And sometimes the beer in front of you is the best one yet. Thanks for joining me this week on Beer in Front. Hope you like the changes that are happening right now. You think you'll notice a little bit more this week. I started it out last week, so hopefully you enjoy what you're hearing. If you do like it, please hit like and subscribe. Give a review if you can, because that helps the algorithm and helps more people find me. I mentioned in the intro, today we're going to talk about the ashtray. I have a Beer in Front ashtray made up just for the show. You'll notice it in the cover art here. I don't smoke, so I know people that do, whether it's cigarettes, weed, or whatever. If you'd like the one and only collector's item Beer in Front ashtray, send me an email this week, dave@beerinfront.com. Put the subject as ashtray, and then I'll pick a winner and get that out to you in the next week or so. But yeah, if you smoke and you want the limited edition, one of a kind Beer in Front ashtray, I will hook you up with that. Also going to have the brewery of the week, where instead of just giving you a review of a beer, I want to talk more about that brewery. Some weeks it'll be interview driven. Some weeks it'll just be talking about the brewery itself. This week I'm going to have the IPA from Kishwaukee Brewing Company. Give you a little brief synopsis on that. I had them on the show last year. Really cool. You can find out more if you want to go back and listen to that. But I love all the people at Kishwaukee Brewing Company, and I do need to get my ass out there in the near future. I'm going to wrap things up and talk about the big news out of Chicago, where Phase 3 is moving into Chicago, and they're going to take over the old Metropolitan Brewing location right there on the river. I'll give you my 2 cents on that topic. Grab yourself a beer. Let's kick this off. Pull up a bar stool. There used to be something sitting right in front of you here. Something nobody questioned. Something that was just there. The way the taps were there. The way the bartender's rag was there. A heavy glass dish, sometimes tin, sometimes stamped with the brewery's logo. A half-melted matchbook balanced on the rim. A little graveyard of butts by closing time. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the ashtray. It's not exactly glamorous, but for about 100 years, it was one of the most important objects on the American bar. And then, in the space of maybe 15 years, it disappeared from most of them entirely. This is the story of how a piece of glassware ended up at the center of a fight over what a bar even is. Let's start with the thing itself, because it wasn't always the same thing. Early American taverns didn't have ashtrays because they didn't need them. Cigarettes weren't yet the dominant way people smoked. Pipes and cigars were tapped out into spittoons, into fireplaces, onto floors, covered in sawdust for exactly that reason. The sawdust wasn't quaint. It was a cleanup system for a room full of men flicking ash and spitting tobacco juice. That's disgusting. You just spit on the floor. But let's get back to the story. The dedicated ashtray, as we recognize it, really arrives with the cigarette boom of the early 20th century. Mass-produced cigarettes needed a different kind of fire management, shorter burn, more frequent stubbing out, and a lot more units smoked per hour than a cigar. Bars adapted. By the 30s and 40s, the ashtray had become standard bar equipment, and it had also become something else: free advertising. Breweries and distilleries figured out fast that a heavy glass ashtray sitting on a bar all day, every day, was a billboard nobody could ignore. Stamp a logo into the glass, give it away to bar owners for nothing, and your brand sits in front of every customer for the life of the object, which, because these things were built like bricks, could be decades. Some of those Pabst and Schlitz and Hamm ashtrays from the 50s are still floating around bars and antique shops today, outliving the breweries that made some of them, outliving prohibition repeal parties, outliving entire bar buildings. There's a whole minor economy that grew up around this stuff. You could go to eBay or antique shops and you could find old ashtrays. And those ashtrays are some of the most sought out pieces because, unlike a tap handle or a neon sign, every single bar needed dozens of them. But the ashtray was never just a piece of equipment. It was load bearing for an entire idea of what a bar felt like. Think about how bars get described in the writing about them: the haze hanging under the lights, the smell that gets into your coat and your hair, the way a room looks through a thin blue layer of smoke at 10 p.m. That wasn't incidental atmosphere. For most of the 20th century, that was the atmosphere. Bars were one of the last rooms in American life where you could smoke constantly, indoors, without anyone blinking. Offices were starting to restrict it by the 80s. Airlines banned it. Restaurants put smokers into sections that fooled nobody, but the bar held out. The bar was smoking's last room. That meant the ashtray sat at the center of the whole sensory experience of going out. You ordered a beer, you got an ashtray within arm's reach without even asking, and the night's rhythm ran on both. Drink, smoke, talk, and repeat. Bartenders emptied them constantly. A clean ashtray was the basic mark of a place that gave a damn, the same as a clean glass. Then came the bans. Smoking bans in bars and restaurants rolled out city by city, state by state, starting in California in the mid 90s and accelerating hard through the 2000s. New York's came in 2003, Chicago in 2008. By the time most of these laws landed, the fight had already played out the same way in city council chambers across the country, bar owners arguing it would kill business, public health advocates citing secondhand smoke research, and somewhere in the middle, bartenders who spent their whole careers working in smoke-filled rooms suddenly breathing clean air on shift for the first time. What's interesting is the ashtray didn't get legislated away directly. Nobody passed a law banning an ashtray. It just became useless. Once you can't light up inside, there's nothing to put out. Bars didn't need a transition plan. The ashtrays just disappeared from the bar top one by one, into back closets, into the garbage, occasionally in a box that ended up on a flea market table years later. And the atmosphere changed with it fast. You walk into a bar in 2008 versus 1998, and the single biggest sensory difference isn't the beer list or the music. It's that you could smell the beer at all. You could smell the fryer in the back. You could smell the dude sitting next to you. Smoke used to cover all of that up. Some old timers will tell you they miss it, not because they smoked, but because the smoke was doing a kind of work in the room, masking, softening, giving the whole place a haze that made it feel separate from daylight life. Take it away and a bar can suddenly look a little starker than it used to. So what happened to all those ashtrays? Some are still out there doing their old job. Go far enough into rural counties or certain states with looser bar smoking laws, and you'll still find one sitting on the bar. Some got repurposed. Bartenders used the heavy glass ones for olives, for lime wedges, for loose change, for anything round that needs a heavy dish to sit in. A lot of them became collectibles. Dealers will tell you that a clean vintage Hamm's ashtray that used to be given away to bar owners for free now sells for real money, decorating a basement bar with the past it never actually had. There's something a little poignant in that. An object designed to be a disposable, replaceable, mass produced, given away for nothing, outlived the habit it was built to serve and ended up being valuable because it's a relic of something gone. Next time you're at a bar built before, say, 1990, take a look at the wood, especially around the corners and the rail. You'll sometimes still find the faint round scars, burn marks where a cigarette sat balanced on the edge for just a little bit too long decades ago while someone finished telling you a story. The ashtray's gone. The bar remembers it anyway. That's it for the ashtray. I have a beer in front ashtray, and I will give it away. If you are interested, send me an email. I will give away this beer in front ashtray. So if you're out there still smoking cigarettes, God bless you. I don't anymore, but I have a beer in front ashtray. So send me an email. I'll pick a winner out of a hat, and I will send you a beer in front ashtray. The brewery of the week is Kishwaukee Brewing Company out in Woodstock, Illinois, and I'm going to have their IPA. I'm going to do a little something different with the beer in front, where I want to talk more about the brewery itself as opposed to just cracking open a beer and telling you it's good. So we'll do a little story about this and have the beer later. This is something I want to start doing on more of a regular basis. I also want to do the tavern of the week, but life got in the way last week. Had plenty of doctor's appointments, and they kind of frown on you coming in for a doctor's visit after you've been in the tavern, but that'll be coming up soon once life calms down a bit. But the brewery of the week is Kishwaukee Brewing Company. It's the middle of July, and most brewers in Illinois, they've already labeled their Märzens away, filed under seasonal, rolling out once a year with pumpkin ales and the hoodies and flannel shirts. Not here. In one brewery in Woodstock, the Märzen never leaves the tap list. 12 months a year, malty and amber, and completely out of season on purpose. This is Kishwaukee Brewing Company out on Dillard Court in Woodstock, McHenry County, about an hour northwest of Chicago. Quick note before we go any further. If that name sounds familiar, you might be thinking of the Kishwaukee River or Kishwaukee College down in DeKalb County. Different Kishwaukee. This one's about beer, not water, though the name itself comes from the same source, a native word for sycamore tree, borrowed from the land long before anyone was brewing on it. Kishwaukee was founded by Dan Payson, who learned how to brew out in Seattle, and it shows. Payson said the Pacific Northwest scene shaped everything about he and his wife Cara think about beer. West Coast IPA, sure, but also traditional European-style lagers, barrel fermentation, an appreciation for brewing cultures older than the American craft boom. When they landed in the Midwest, Payson didn't chase a tap room in a big city. He'd already helped launch 2 other well-regarded brew pubs in the area before starting his own. What he took from Seattle wasn't the style, it was a standard, clean, traditional beer, done right rather than done loud. And in bottles, the beer that proves it is the Bufflehead. It's an American brown ale, caramel, toffee up front, with more body and hop character than the English browns it descended from. It's not flashy. It's the kind of beer that rewards a second pint more than a first sip, which might be why it took silver at the World Beer Cup in 2023 and why Beer Connoisseur named it Beer of the Year for 2025. 2 years apart, 2 different rooms of judges, and coming home with hardware. But walk into the building and the beer is only half the story. Kishwaukee built a 10,000 square foot space designed to split the difference between a beer hall and a beer garden. Family friendly. Food trucks rotating through on a regular basis. The kind of room where no one's rushing you out for the next reservation. It's the same instinct we've talked about on the show before, the neighborhood tavern instinct. Except here, instead of 100 years of history holding a bar together, it's four. Dan and Cara built that gathering place feeling from scratch in a town that didn't necessarily need another brewery, and they made it work anyway. If you make the trip to Woodstock, get the Märzen. It's a great beer. I've had it before. It's one of their best sellers year-round in every season, whether calendar agrees about it or not. That's Kishwaukee Brewing Company. Next week, another brewery, another glass. But right now, I'm going to crack open their IPA. 6.5%, 65 IBUs. Look at that, 65 IBUs. Kishwaukee IPA pours really nice. Good foam on this. It looks more cloudy than a crystal clear West Coast, but the smell I'm getting from this is definite West Coast aroma. Really smells nice. Oh, yeah. I'm getting bitterness right from the top. That tastes really good. That's a definite West Coast IPA right there. Really wonderful flavors here. Let me see what I'm getting out of this. Yeah, I'm getting the citrus, getting the pine, but I really dig the bitterness. You're not used to bitterness anymore with everything being so hop forward. This is really nice, really smooth drinking beer. Like I said, 6.5% alcohol. Not a lot of places you can get it if you're in the city of Chicago. You have to go to the Binnies. I went to the one on Elston Avenue and picked it up there. It's a great spot. And it's my fault. I haven't been up there. I need to get my ass out to Woodstock. I need to just get in the car, load up the iPass, and head out there. Wonderful people, Dan and Cara, great people. Heather, there's thunder going over my head as I'm talking. Heather, who works there, Heather's a wonderful human being. I've seen her at plenty of beer festivals around the state. So everyone there, just really good, solid people. Love everything about them. And I love their logo. When I get my ass up there, I'm going to need to buy myself the dad hat, because one of the best logos in brewing too. I love everything about them. So if you're out near Woodstock, you got to check out Kishwaukee, pick some up, put it in the cart. For the last call on this week's podcast, Phase 3 Brewing. They're going to open their first Chicago location at the former space that Metropolitan held in Avondale. Going to open up later this year. The date's not set. To be honest, I have mixed feelings about that. I love Phase 3 Brewing. They're out in Lake Zurich, Illinois. They also have a location in Elmhurst. I love all of the beers. I really am looking forward to visiting them. I'm looking forward to having more of their stuff because it's going to be a lot closer to where I live. I hope they have all the success in the world. I do have mixed feelings because I still miss Metropolitan Brewing that was there. So it's going to feel odd to me, and I know I've talked to a few other people that feel the same way. Nothing against Phase 3. It just feels weird to have another brewery going into that space. I'm not going to rehash everything that happened 3 years ago between Metropolitan and the owners of the building. It's a long story. We're not going to get into that. But Metropolitan was forced out and they're no longer around. Short Fuse wound up buying like the IP rights and started producing some of their beers at their location out in Schiller Park. And then Short Fuse, they're leaving their location. So there's no more Metropolitan beers. Their beers were phenomenal. So that's my mixed feelings on it. Like, hopefully Phase 3 is paying a lot more in rent than Metropolitan was, because if they got a deal cheaper than what Metropolitan was paying, I'm really going to be upset about that and feel bad. But like I said, this has nothing to do with Phase 3 at all. I love their beers. Their beers are absolutely great from top to bottom. I've never had a bad one. I'm looking forward to them coming, but I do have mixed feelings, and it's going to be odd the first time going in there in not ordering a great Metropolitan beer. And that's going to do it for this episode of Beer in Front. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you enjoyed the show, do me a favor, follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It really does help more people find the show. So when next time, remember, you don't have to drink the greatest beer in the world. Just drink the beer that's in front of you. Cheers.